Good morning and welcome to Morning Java, brought to you as always by Get Go Cafe and Market, where as always, they've got the fresh food option, fresh drinks. You can get curbside pickup available for you there. You can also, if you do DoorDash, they deliver there too. So get yourself some Get Go Cafe and Market. A lot of great sandwiches, tater tots, jalapeno poppers, so many things on their menu. Tom, how you doing, my man?
Very good, Chris, and yourself?
Doing great, doing great. Of course, the top topic to talk about this morning is the Super Bowl. It's over. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are your Super Bowl champions, which means Tom Brady has won his seventh Super Bowl ring. In the history of the NFL, it's never been done. And I know there's a lot of people in Pittsburgh that aren't happy about it, and for other reasons as well. But Tom, was so amazing about this game, it wasn't even Tom Brady. It was the fact that the Chiefs didn't score a touchdown. What the heck was that? I get that their offensive line was beat up and that Tampa Bay had a tough line, and I said that was the main way that Tampa Bay could win this game, but I thought that would make it close, not a blowout.
Yeah, without question. I think Brady ended up being the team MVP. I think three touchdowns, 2 or 3 touchdowns in the first half, 80% completion percentage. But really, the overarching story here really was Tampa's defense, and just my goodness, did they get after Patrick Mahomes the whole game? Just a terrific all around effort. I mean, they ran the ball. Fournette was a great pickup. They've had so many great pickups, starting with obviously Tom Brady, Gronkowski. They couldn't stop him, and that defense. Oh my goodness, did they get after Patrick Mahomes? I mean, I've never seen a quarterback run 15, 20 yards back so many times in a game as Mahomes had to today. And this game just really wasn't very close for most of the game. It's kind of it was clear that Tampa had the upper hand, and there was never, you just kept kind of waiting, right, Chris? You kept waiting for some drama. Like, certainly Mahomes is going to come out this drive, lead him down the field and get a touchdown. But when they got close, they settled for field goals, and you can't win in this league just kicking field goals.
No, you can't. And I mean, the Buccaneers came out. You had Ndamukong Suh had a sack and a half. Shaquille Barrett had a sack. They got after him. It was really rough. 4 quarterback hits for Shaquille Barrett in this game. He made his presence felt. It's just astounding to me. I know people are going to point to Tom Brady and all that. The story for me is Todd Bowles' defense. I mean, even when Patrick Mahomes had the time in the pocket, there weren't too many people open. And this was one thing I talked about on the Paul Zeiss show at the end of the week last week. Was I'm interested to see how Devin White and Levante David match up with Travis Kelce over the middle. If they can neutralize him, it can allow the rest of the secondary to say, we're going to take away Tyreek Hill, and you got to beat us with Mecole Hardman and Brandon Pringle and all these other guys that we don't care about. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, yes, Travis Kelce finished with 10 catches for 133 yards, but they were all kind of like, we'll let you have those ones.
Yeah, it's second half. He had some kind of seam plays where by then they just don't want to give a quick score. And Devin White was terrific, right? I mean, he could have been the MVP.
12 tackles and an interception.
Yeah, I mean, he was outstanding. And again, just a total team effort today. Kind of this is taking a little bit away from Tom Brady, but it kind of reminded me a little bit of when Denver won the last Super Bowl with Manning as quarterback. Now, Peyton Manning wasn't very good in that game. Tom Brady was good today, but it did remind me of just that, just dominance, the defensive dominance. Seattle, when they won their Super Bowl, just defensively dominant, and they, again, like you said, you just don't expect that to happen to Patrick Mahomes. I picked Kansas City. I knew the offensive linemen with KC were out, but I still thought he'd find a way. And I give the kid credit. I mean, he was under incredible harassment the entire game, and he made some incredible throws that probably should have been caught, where he was just almost on the getting sacked. I'm going to be interested to see. I don't know how you felt, but it just felt like Kansas City was going to be in the next 5-6 Super Bowls. Although we know that teams sometimes
things happen.
Teams have to take a step back and everything. But boy, the one thing I will say after coming out of this, watching this game, is Kansas City's defense. They've gotten away with just kind of having a so-so defense all year. It's basically been Mahomes in the passing game, right?
Yeah.
And if you can stop that, you got a very, if you can stop that, right? Not many people can hold them to not getting them a touchdown, but you see that they are kind of 2 or 3, 4 guys, and they can run the ball a little bit, but not a ton. And defensively, they're not going to scare anybody. I mean, look, the Browns, they gave them a good game. Now Mahomes hurt for the third half, the third quarter, and the fourth quarter, but they still gave him a pretty good game. So it might be a little early to say how if we're going to crown these guys as the AFC dynasty for the next 7, 8 years. I think they've got some things they've got to fix, but without question, just a terrific all-around effort from Tampa.
No, Tom, if you want to crown him, then crown him.
I'm not crowning them. Like I said, I just
sorry, I had to get my Denny Green in.
You're fine. It's but yeah, it's again just a terrific and again Brady was. I know people in Pittsburgh are tired of hearing about it, but then of course it didn't help at the end. They showed the graphic at the end. He's won more Super Bowls by himself now than the Steelers and the Patriots. So I guess you allow him to enjoy his evening and I mean how many guys come in 1 year, right? 1 year. And it's not like he had to wait 2 or 3 years. First year wins the title.
So we specifically, in talking about that Super Bowl, skipped over a very important name in Pittsburgh, and that's Antonio Brown. And we did that intentionally because we wanted to talk to you all about that in this segment. Because Antonio Brown, yes, he didn't do a whole lot as far as catches wise. I mean, he did have 5 catches, but granted for 22 yards, but he caught a touchdown, and an important touchdown, because after the Chiefs didn't get a touchdown at the end of the first half with a minute and a second to go, Tom Brady works the ball down the field. Granted, some questionable calls that got him there, but works the ball down the field and gets down into the red zone, and Antonio Brown catches a pass in traffic with 6 seconds left that if he doesn't catch, it's maybe 17-6, and you're thinking that that's a very manageable score, but instead he catches a touchdown. It's 21-6 at the half, and that gives the Patriots, geez, look at me, the Buccaneers, the space that they need in this game. And Antonio Brown, it's crazy to think not too long ago, Tom, this dude was throwing gummies at police officers on Instagram Live and broadcasting every stupid thing he did. He looked like he was just a self-combusting, spontaneously combusting individual who was eventually going to hurt himself. And that's what I was saying, is I'm scared this man's going to hurt himself. Now he's a Super Bowl champion who's caught a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Well, regardless of what you think about him, he had an impact tonight, and that was a big touchdown, as you said. Actually, if you think about it, Chris, very similar to last week or 2 weeks ago when Tampa beat Green Bay, right at the end of the half. Green Bay ends up settling for a field goal where they probably needed to go get a touchdown, and then Tom Brady leads them right back. And last play there, Brown AB makes a critical catch, and really and I think we're going to talk about this, a lot of Pittsburgh Tampa connections, right?
Huge.
Starting with, go ahead, Bruce. Let's start with Bruce Arians.
I mean, Bruce Arians at 68 years old, winning his first Super Bowl as a head coach. That's huge for him, and it's crazy because he took over this team and all the things that happened with it. You get Tom Brady and he makes it work. But on top of him, the people that he hired under him, first of all, in Black History Month, he had a ton of black coaches on his roster.
Specifically, his 2 offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. But yeah,
exactly.
Both
coordinators and several position coaches. Byron Leftwich, offensive coordinator, looking really good this year, and making a case for maybe he needs to get some head coaching calls soon. He's a former Steeler, of course. Antoine Randall and Larry Foote, 2 former Steelers on the coaching staff as position coaches. And then still on the roster, Ross Cockrell is going to get a Super Bowl ring, a former Steeler. Mm-hmm. Steve McClendon, another former Steeler, the guy that kind of took over the torch from Casey Hampton at defensive tackle back in the early 2010s. And like we said, Antonio Brown, it's crazy when you look at how many former Steelers were on this roster tonight that won a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah, and one of the things you can say about this, and we mentioned this just in the last segment. Again, Brady comes in and wins the Super Bowl. Those type of things can go wrong sometimes, though, and
Yep.
we've seen it in different sports where mega stars at the end of their careers, they get them together, right? I mean, Gronk, everyone's kind of coming in, and it can
Hmm.
go wrong. It can go really wrong. We've seen it in the NBA multiple times where all these aging stars kind of come together and it just doesn't work. So again, hats off to the former offensive coordinator Bruce Arians, Byron Leftwich, all those guys, Foot and AB. They made it work. It didn't. It wasn't pretty early in the year. There were some struggles, but they made it work. And those guys are going to be their Super Bowl champions. And we'll see what's going to happen with Bruce Arians now. Whether he decides to come back another year or hand off the reins to some one of his coordinators. You would think Todd Bowles, who's been a former head coach, might be in line for it if he decides to go that way. We're recording this on Sunday night, so just to tell our people, we don't
Hmm.
exactly know what's going to happen for sure, but yeah, it's a big day for those former Steelers.
So not to be forgotten, Tom, we do have to talk about the Hall of Fame
Yeah,
because two Steelers made it into the Hall of Fame. We were pretty sure about Bill Nunn. And like we talked about last week, Tom,
I think we
Dale
did.
told me Dale told me this time last year when Polamalu and Cower and Shell were getting in, he told me, he was like, Chris, I feel like Allen's a shoe-in next year. And here we are, Alan Faneca and Bill Nunn. We have 5 Steelers who are going to have enshrinements in this upcoming year.
Yeah, it's crazy. It really is. It's going to be black and gold in Canton, Ohio. The Steelers are going to be playing in that game. I think they were scheduled to play in it last year. I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think they were supposed to play the Cowboys.
Yes.
You'd have to think the Steelers are definitely coming back to play in that game. Yeah, it's a great for Pittsburgh. Alan Faneca has waited 6-7 years. He gets in. Bill Nunn, and we've talked about Bill Nunn, and just I think a lot of people are really happy for Bill Nunn, the family, Linnell,
Yes.
his daughter. I will say something. In working on a story about him, I had no idea his son was so talented as an actor and was
Really?
Radio
You didn't know he
Raheem.
was Radio Raheem?
I didn't. I loved.
Love the
I
hate.
loved Do the Right. Oh yes, I love that movie. And that was like when I was researching this, I'm like, oh my God, Radio Raheem. So, and I
Yes.
actually talked to Linnell about that. I
Get out of
like
here.
I had to talk to Linnell about Radio Raheem, but back to Bill Nunn, the builder and the super Scott. It's wonderful, and I talked to John Stallworth a couple days ago for a story we were doing on Allen, but we got into talking about Bill Nunn and just how much respect he had for Bill Nunn and all of the stuff that Bill Nunn did behind the scenes for these players as well, not just scouting and bringing them here, but kind of helping them out, mentoring them along,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it's so deserving. And I gotta say, you know what? Between you and I, we did a pretty good job of getting almost the entire field right. At least we mentioned them. I went
Yeah,
back and listened to us. I mentioned John Lynch at the end. I
you
thought
did.
John Lynch might have a chance to get in. You were all over Calvin Johnson and
Mm-hmm.
Charles
And Charles.
Woodson.
Yep.
But really, yeah, it's great to see. And Alan Faneca again. It's hard for guards. I mean, people always talk
Very
about,
hard.
and everyone sees about this, their favorite teams, their favorite players. Why isn't this guy getting in? Why isn't that guy getting in? It's hard for guards to get in. And and Allen deserves it. 4 holding calls. The most incredible stat in all of this stuff. How do you go through 206 games, 201 starts, and have 4
And
holding
4
calls
holding.
as a
That's ridiculous.
guard? That is crazy.
Mm-hmm. And I think one thing that Alan Faneca represents that a lot of people don't talk about enough is he went from the late '90s Cower Steelers all the
Yeah.
way to the first season of Mike Tomlin. He
Yeah.
oversaw. He was part of the change in the team that when they were losing records and they couldn't find any answers, and then they figured out a little bit with Cordell, and then they didn't know what they were doing with Tommy Maddox, and then Ben Roethlisberger comes in and they're competing and they're doing work. He was part of all of that, and he was just such a stellar part of that team that I don't think gets enough credit. Especially, everyone talks about the 75-yard touchdown from Willie Parker and the block
Yeah.
that David DeCastro had in that role, but just you need guys who are an anchor in the middle of your team who just, he's the rock. Everyone knows that he's consistent all the time. And that's what Alan Faneca was. And it's funny that I think that David DeCastro took his number and plays the same position, because sometimes I feel like David DeCastro is carrying on a legacy of that. And I don't think he's as great as Alan Faneca was, but
Right.
Faneca deserved this. And you're absolutely right. Bill Nunn, on top of finding the Steelers. I mean, if it wasn't for him, maybe they don't draft Mel Blount, Donnie Shell, John
Oh God,
Stallworth,
yeah, right.
Ernie Holmes, L.C. Greenwood. I mean, just star
Yeah.
upon star upon star of those 70 Steelers. And not only does that stop the Steelers from winning, but who knows what happens with athletes that went to historically Black colleges and universities at
Absolutely.
that time. Do they ever
Well,
get discovered?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you know what else, Chris? It's guys like Bill Nunn that also now, because of how he does in his kind of front office scouting role, it allows other African Americans, people of color, to get into that. If he does not do well in that job, and in that job, maybe others have to wait even longer.
Yep.
To get front office types, and again, everyone talks about him as a super scout, but man, he had the Rooney's ear, right? I mean, he was a decision maker in that organization, and that paved the way. He was such a trailblazer on multiple levels, and it's good to see that getting recognized. And in talking with Jim Trotter from NFL Network, terrific reporter for NFL Network. I think he's worked at SI and stuff. We were talking again for the story on Nunn, but he was saying it's important when people of color go into the Hall of Fame, and maybe they're not athletes, right? Maybe they love football and they would love to be involved in football somehow. It's important for them to go in there and see people like Bill Nunn. Like, that's something I could do, right? I could maybe be a scout. I'm not a football player, but I really want to be part of football. And they're just before Bill Nunn, there just has not been now that person you can look up to and someone can point to in the Hall of Fame and say, this guy was unbelievable at what he did. And just again, I can't say it enough. What a great story that is for the Steelers, for the city of Pittsburgh. Of course, he's from Pittsburgh. I'm glad we did this segment on the Hall of Famers.